2017年新西兰大选在即，中华电视网推出系列特别节目2017决战国会，9月2日政党问政说明会，9月9日聚焦两大党，9月16日华裔候选人前进国会，党魁及政党代表面对面唇枪舌战，让华人更懂各党政纲。9月23日4个小时全程直播，多路记者直击开票现场连线报道。政经委窦融、周杰主持决战国会开票之夜，电视28台，广播 AM 936，网站936.nz， 微信936全资讯4大平台为您送上2017新西兰大选最全面的报道。2017决战国会。2017决战国会由以下商家特约播映 ：Restaco 专注土地测量、精于分割规划；巴范汤森、姚太郎、鲁洋洋，您房产交易的吉祥二宝 ；JR Group 嘉瑞建筑，诚实为人，诚信为事；嘉利宝纽西兰特产品店，电话09-579-2887；巴范汤森地产中介屈瑞，手机微信021-1900-881；帝王私人安全保险柜，我们专注保护您的重要财物。PGF 保温隔音棉，绿色环保，与您共创温馨家园。巴范汤森 Wayne 郭伟，电话021-680-263。Carwold 车世界，买车卖车就选北岸 Carwold。
Welcome to WTV 2017 General Election Party Representatives Debate Forum. My name is Jennifer. This debate is divided to 3 segments, each 15 minutes long. We'll explore 3 topic areas: immigration, law and order, and prosperity. At the start of the first segment, we shall have a brief introduction of the party's representatives. Welcome you all. So from Ms. Judith Collins, you have 30 seconds to introduce yourself and your party.
Right. Ni hao, I'm Judith Collins. I'm currently the Minister of Ethnic Communities, and I've had this role over the years, the last 4 years. The National Party is the first party 21 years ago to bring in a Chinese-born MP, and we're also the very first and only party to ever have a Chinese-born member of cabinet. The National Party supports ethnic diversity, immigration, and a very strong growing economy and strong law and order, and it's a party that can deliver for all New Zealanders, no matter what their ethnicity.
Ms. Marima Fox from Maori Party, as you are the co-leader of Maori Party.
Thank you. Kia ora, ni hao everyone. My name is Marima Fox and I am the co-leader of the Māori Party, and we believe in an inclusive society where all peoples are respected. We have our first Asian candidate standing for us this year, Witix, and we're really excited that we provide a platform to give him a voice that speaks on behalf of all Asian people who are not hamstrung within their party policies. We're excited about the future where in 2050 New Zealand will be 50% brown, Māori, Pacifica and Asian.
Thank you. Mr. Roshan Naharia, the People's Party leader, please.
Good morning, Niha. I'm Roshan Naharia. I'm the leader of the New Zealand People's Party. I've been in New Zealand 45 years. My children and grandchildren are born and brought up in this country. I've got a business where we employ 250 people. But see, we started New Zealand People's Party very recently. We're new to the bloc, but what we're going to do, we have announced 3 policies already: immigration, law and order, and housing. We feel that by providing these things, it's prosperity for the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Denise Roche from Green Party.
Kia ora, ni hao. My name is Denise Roach. I'm the Green Party Member of Parliament with the portfolio for immigration and for ethnic communities. The Green Party believes in an inclusive society where we actually reject the narrative that blames immigrants for the stretches on our infrastructure. We're campaigning around improving the lot for families, cleaning up our rivers, working on climate change.
Thank you. Mr. David Seymour, ACT Party leader and candidate for Epsom.
Ni hao, daja hao, Waldemis, David Seymour, Washer, Jingdongdong, Dang Kui. Thank you very much for having me in this debate, World TV. I'm David Seymour, the leader of the X Party. We have a long history, unlike some parties that show up at the last minute, a long history of being beside the Chinese community, of being pro-immigration, standing up for immigrants and being tough on crime. And particularly in this election, we look forward to addressing the issues of housing and education that have so many people concerned. Xie.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Wood, representing Labour Party, Mount Roskill candidate.
Ni hao, da jia hao. I'm Michael Wood, the MP for Mount Roskill. Very proud to be here as the Labour Party representative today. Labour is a party that first recognised the People's Republic of China and of course negotiated the China Free Trade Agreement. We recognise the contribution of people of Chinese descent here in New Zealand, and we're looking forward to forming a new government with new ideas next month that really takes action on important issues like housing, health, education, transport, and making sure that we have safer communities for everyone.
Thank you. We're going to focus on many issues tonight that the voters tell us are very important to them, and we are going to press the specifics. I'm honored to have the role tonight, but tonight it belongs to you. We look forward to hearing you, your policies, your values. So we'll have an open discussion in the third segment. Let's begin. The first question, I'd like to ask the immigration issue. Each candidate has 1.5 minutes to have your answer. The first one is for Labour Party. Michael, Labour Party would limit study visas and work visas to stop 20,000 to 30,000 migrants to New Zealand. Is cutting the number the Labour's priority? What's your stance on immigration issues at the net migration number is over 70,000 a year? Michael.
Well, look, I represent the electorate of Mount Roskill, which is the most diverse multicultural electorate in all of New Zealand, and I'm exceptionally proud of that. In the end, every person in New Zealand, pretty much except for Māori people, have come here through immigration in relatively recent times. What we need is an immigration policy that works for the whole of New Zealand. And your point is valid that we currently have net immigration of over 70,000. That's about the highest it's been since the 1870s. What the Labour Party says is that at a time when we have huge challenges in terms of the infrastructure that we need in New Zealand, our housing and our transport, we know that we have major issues. We need a new government with a plan to fix those infrastructure problems, and that will be Labour's priority. While we are fixing those infrastructure problems, we think it does make some sense to ease back a little bit on the record immigration, set our immigration at around about 40 to 50,000 people net per year, which is about the same as it was most years under John Key and under Helen Clark. That's a very reasonable and moderate policy, and it'll be to the benefit of everyone who's here, whether they're new to New Zealand or established residents. That's a moderate policy that I think is very sensible in the context of the challenges that we face today and the opportunities that New Zealand has.
Let's do have time.
No, look, I think I'm very focused on summarising my policies in an effective way, and I think that explains Labour's immigration policy just fine for now. I'm sure there'll be some questions and comments from the other candidates.
Okay, thank you. I see you are not agree with them. So second question is for you, Ms. Marima Fox. Maori Party will allow the parents of migrants to come to New Zealand on conditions they get medical insurance cover their first 10 years and have them sign a waiver to agree not to apply for any welfare benefits. So do you believe it's acceptable for migrants, and why is it the right solution for both parts of locals and new migrants?
The Māori Party believe that New Zealand needs more population, especially in the regions, which is why we don't believe in capping the numbers or using immigration as a political tool to simply gain votes. The people who've been persecuted by Labour's policy and their announcement about housing being blamed on people with Chinese sounding names, we think is appalling. We don't believe that New Zealand First policy about cutting all migrants to this country is going to help at all. When you have young people who come out here for their education and they want to live in New Zealand, they find that's a wonderful place to be, then to be able to bring their families out with them or their parents with them makes sense to us. But we would like to direct them to work in the communities, to go out into the regions and contribute there. And it's an easy choice, really. If they have to go home because they've got under the Chinese one-child policy, then we are breaking families up. If they choose to come and live here, then the choice is simple: go home to China and stay there, or start a new life here, but do it in a regional way where you can have internships and share in the prosperity of this country, add value to our nation by including immigrants in our country, and have a greater understanding of each other's culture. The Māori Party believe that culture speaks to culture. I'm disappointed in the way that Asian peoples have been persecuted because of the policies of some of the different parties, when in fact European migrants in this country far outnumber the number of Asian community in the community.
Thank you. Denise, the Green Party wants to increase the refugee quota to 5,000 per year within 6 years. So some people say it's too much for New Zealand, such a small country. And do you view cutting the migrants number and increasing the refugee quota is the right thing to do for New Zealanders?
No, we don't believe in cutting the migrant numbers, actually, but we do believe that we should be doing more for quota refugees. There's about 60 million people who are displaced at the moment through persecution and war, and we are down the bottom of the league tables in terms of the number of refugees that we take per capita. Even Australia beats us in terms of what they do for refugees. We've recently, national government has recently announced that they will increase the quota to 1,000, but that takes place next year. And in the meantime, it's still at 750 refugees per year, and it's been 750 since 1987. So it's about time that we actually did our bit. We've signed up to the international treaties that says that we will, and we've been really lagging behind. Increasing the quota to 5,000 means that about 1,000 of them would come through on community sponsorship, which is what happens in Canada, and the other 4,000, it would mean that we would need to build another centre, resettlement centre for orientation when they come through. There's one in Auckland, but other centres, other cities are really, really keen to have them there, because refugees don't stay refugees. They actually contribute to our society and our economy. So Dunedin, I think, so far have put up their hand to say that. And I think we can do both. We can have good immigration policies and refugees increasing the quota.
Thank you. Ms. Judith Collins, the national government announced its tightening of migration rules, but softened a little bit later. So my question for you is, what's the appropriate and sustainable number of migrants to maintain economic growth?
Well, I think the numbers that we've got at the moment are actually sustainable, as long as we're building the infrastructure, which we are. And we'd really like to see more support across the political spectrum for the roads, the rail, the housing work that's already going on, and even the cycleways, which are really important as well now. So we believe that it is a reasonable number. We also look back to the fact that the countries that don't support immigration generally have dying populations. And we are a really lucky country because we can choose who gets to come here and who doesn't. And that's because we have an ocean that surrounds us, or oceans that surround us for a very long way. So we are in a very privileged position. We think that when we looked at changing some of the immigration settings, we found that actually, particularly the regions, didn't like that at all, because they found that immigrants were helping hugely to keep the economy booming in the regions, as well as not just about Auckland, it's actually about the regions, and that immigrants were very much part of the economy and adding huge value. So we believe that any discussions around immigration should always be very sensible, not based on race, always based on what's in the best interest of New Zealand. And we believe having skilled, high quality migrants coming in with a lot of energy and drive and really good ethics as to what they want to do and contribute to New Zealand, to be part of New Zealand and buy into our whole New Zealand story. That's what we need in New Zealand, and we don't look at people based on race.
Thank you. Mr. Rakinarian, the People's Party is committed to make fair immigration rules work for all New Zealanders and new migrants, creating a work permit system that benefits all New Zealanders, employees and workers. So my question for you is, what's your plan for the further migration support?
First of all, I'd like to give this figure that population of Asian immigrants in this country is about 14%. They contribute to the economy 21% roughly. So that means that one immigrant contributes economy to 1.5 times. So what it means that every immigrant creates a job, one for themselves and half job for other people. So the contribution by the economy by immigrants is more than what they're taking it. So first of all, people have to stop bashing the immigrants. So they are not really taking their jobs. Second thing, I'm saying is that Asian people especially have a different culture. So we're going to open that bag which is National Party just stopped recently, that their parents category, there will be a lot of parents again. But won't be like, we'll be saying that we'll give them open work permit first, so they can't go on a benefit or any security, like they cannot go to the government and ask for the social security. Second thing, we're going to, which used to have a last family member, we're going to open that again, last family member, which is very important because you can't have a 2-member family or 3-member family living in India or China and one member not there. So it'd be good for the family to get together. The next one, what we're going to do is that students one. See that when the students came to this, international students came to this country, they were given, you look their website of the immigration, not now, they just taken off how this is pathway to residence. So this government is betraying that. So we're going to open that, meet their commitments. Thank you.
Thank you. David, ACT Party's policy of free movement trade between Anglosphere countries, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, are these English-speaking countries favoured by ACT?
Well, I think that having a Kanzuk free movement zone is something that New Zealand should do. We should be looking to make it easier to move around the world at every opportunity. But in actual fact, if you look at ACT's record, well, the Labour Party has blamed Chinese people for the housing crisis with their Chinese-sounding names. The National Party has cancelled the parent category, and the ACT Party has been pro-immigration for all people all the way along. We have said that you should be able to bring your parents, because I know what it's like to lose a parent and be separated from your family. We should be able to bring our parents to New Zealand, but we should not be able to burden the taxpayer by taking superannuation and healthcare. So we would reintroduce the parent category immediately, but more importantly, when it comes to New Zealand's serious challenges, rather than blaming the Chinese or any other migrant community for the housing crisis, we would say we have to fix the housing market more generally. We would recognise that the Chinese community, through the New Zealand Chinese Building Industry Association, is doing more to fix the housing crisis than just about anyone else, and certainly more than Chinese immigrants have done to damage the housing market. They are improving it. So if you want a party that is consistently pro-immigration, that doesn't play the race card, that stands up for immigrants and immigration, and that wants to fix New Zealand's long-term problems of infrastructure and housing for everybody, then the only party for you is ACT.
Thank you, David. It's time to have a break. After the break, we'll move to law and order issue.
2017年新西兰大选在即，中华电视网推出系列特别节目2017决战国会，9月2日政党问政说明会，9月9日聚焦两大党，9月16日华裔候选人前进国会，党魁及政党代表面对面唇枪舌战，让华人更懂各党政纲。9月23日4个小时全程直播，多路记者直击开票现场连线报道，政经委窦融、周杰主持决战国会开票之夜，电视28台，广播 AM 936，网站936.nz， 微信936全资讯4大平台为您送上2017新西兰大选最全面的报道。2017决战国会。2017决战国会由以下商家特约播映 ：Restaco 专注土地测量、精于分割规划；巴范汤森、姚太郎、鲁阳阳，您房产交易的吉祥二宝；JR Group 嘉瑞建筑，诚实为人，诚信为事；嘉利宝纽西兰特产品店，电话09-579-2887；巴范汤森地产中介屈瑞，手机微信0211900881；帝王私人 人安全保险柜，我们专注保护您的重要财物。PGF 保温隔音棉，绿色环保，与您共创温馨家园。8番 Thompson Wayne 郭伟，电话021-680-263。Carwold 车世界，买车卖车就选北岸 Carwold。
Welcome to the second part of Party Representatives Debate Forum. In this segment, we'll focus on law and order. Each candidate has 1.5 minutes to answer the question. So the first question will start with Ms. Judith Collins, National Party. The National wants to put the serious youth offenders into the boot camp training alongside with soldiers. The cost will be around 100,000 a year for each kid. Why is it so much, and why is it a good idea?
Because the children that we're talking about, or young people we're talking about, are some of the worst offenders that we have. And I'm sorry to say that there are some very small number of very young people who are involved in violent and sexual offending that is going to lead to jail for them and serious consequences for their victims. And this is a last stop or last opportunity for them before they go to jail if they continue that behaviour. They have had a lot of work put into them over the years from the time that they were born, and unfortunately this is something we've had to do, and we believe that it will actually make a difference. It will not make a difference for every one of them, but it will make a difference for some. And for every victim, it's good to know that there's something is happening to try and prevent this behaviour continuing. I'm sorry to say too is that there are some families that have not looked after their children properly, and in some cases those families and the adults involved, their parents, have actually encouraged or enabled children to do this, which is why we're also fining parents who let their children under 14 be out on the street after midnight. And we've found that in my electorate in Papakura and many of the other South Auckland electorates, this is a major issue, and quite a lot of the serious crime is actually being undertaken by people at the moment who are under the age of criminal responsibility and who are actually acting in a very serious and violent way. So this is not only to save victims, it's also to save them.
Thank you. Michael Wood, what's your response to the National's youth offenders training, and what's the Labour's policy to reduce the serious youth crime?
Well, look, this is a major issue, and after 9 years of a national-led government, we have many people who are feeling less safe on the streets and in their small businesses. And I know that my electorate of Mount Roskill, we've had countless small businesses, dairies, liquor stores and others, who have been horribly affected by violent crime, and we absolutely need to prioritise this. It's a basic of a civilised society that people aren't hurt by offenders when they're just going about their daily business. Will boot camps work? The evidence that I've seen suggests that they're not particularly effective, but there may be some value in it. What I would say is that when you're getting to the point of talking about boot camps, it's already too late, because the kids you're going to be sending down to them have already committed violent crimes and have already hurt people. What we need to be most focused on is keeping people safe in the first place by ensuring that the crime doesn't happen. The number one policy that Labor has put forward in this area is to reinvest in our community police. What a lot of small business people tell me is that they no longer see the local police on the street, at their shops, keeping an eye on things and preventing crime before it happens. So Labor will reinvest in community police, reopen the local police stations that have been closed under the national government, and make sure there's a good police presence to prevent crime. The other key thing is to get our young people into education, training and work, because young people who are in those areas are far less likely to get caught up in drugs, caught up in the gangs and caught up in crime. That's the very best thing we can do in the long term to keep people safe.
Do you have time? Or time's up?
No.
Marima Fox, Maori Party, the current statistics showing that 51% of male prisoners and 57% of female prisoners are Maori. So what's your resolution to tackle this high crime rate effectively?
Absolutely, we think that's the most important issue facing our people. The justice system in New Zealand is absolutely racist, and Māori young people are being locked away far more often than any other ethnic group for the same crime. So actually, unless we deal with the underlying issues of why they have been incarcerated in the first place, then we are not going to turn those young people around, and they will go on to be fitter, hardened criminals from a boot camp that's taught them how to be stronger, but not stronger mentally unless
unless we deal with the issues that have brought them there in the first place. And it may be bad parenting, it may be a sexual abuse as a child, and that leads to mental health conditions and PTSD. Simply locking them up is not going to work. We're committed to putting Māori wardens back on the streets in the communities who know these young people, who know their families, who can go right to the heart of the issue rather than waiting for them to be locked up and incarcerated. And while we're talking about this, I find it quite remarkable that Mr. Seymour, who claims to be supporting young people, also supports this 3 strikes legislation which just locks them up, claims to be supporting immigrants and Chinese people in our community, yet the only member that they've had for 10 years who's contributed to the ACT Party and Kenneth Wang is no longer there, and I'd like to ask David why that is. We need to connect with our Asian community and bring ourselves closer as one family living in New Zealand, and do that through an understanding of language and culture.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Denise, New Zealand has a very high level of gun ownership, but no accurate records of stockpile firearms. What's the Greens' plan to tackle this issue and to prevent the supply of firearms to criminals?
I guess what we need to be looking at is how guns are being sold. One of the founding principles of the Green Party is peace and non-violence. So we're actually pretty opposed to the sale of guns in the first place. Without a doubt, the fact that they are ending up with gangs is a huge problem, and so we need tighter controls, absolutely need tighter controls on it. I guess the other things that we should be looking at is, why do people get involved with gangs in the first place? A lot of the time it's around a lack of belonging, and yes, it is a lack of belonging. And so we need to be ensuring that our people are looked after all the way through. And we support quite a lot of the aspects of the Whānau Ora program, for example. But we're also a very punitive kind of country, and I've been watching with great interest the alternative court systems, like the youth courts and the alcohol and drug courts, which are having a which Judith Collins set up, right, which are actually having a really good impact on ensuring that people get back onto the right pathway. And I think that's where we need to be heading, rather than this kind of boot camp idea, which is a waste of money. I mean, William Bell went through the boot camp. He's the one that went on to do the RSA burglary that resulted in 2 deaths. So we need to take a way less punitive approach and more wraparound approach.
Thank you. Ms. David Seymour, ACT Party has the toughest policy on the law and order. Actually, ACT has been in the government for 9 years. During the past decade, ACT has been pushing the toughest punishment for criminals. But the age of criminals is becoming lower and lower. So what's the main reason? And do you believe sending youth crimes to the boot camp is a great idea?
Well, first of all, the boot camp for the very toughest criminals may be the only place to send those people. These are kids who are committing very serious crimes, murders and rapes under the age of 14, and sending them to Waiouru to be looked after by the army might actually be the best thing to do. It's an interesting idea. It may well work. I think the most important question is, why aren't these children in school? And the ACT Party is responsible for partnership schools or charter schools, which actually have a requirement for the school to report how often the children are attending school, and if the children are not attending the school, there's a consequence for that school. Every other school in New Zealand, if children don't attend, there's really no consequence. So the main question is, why are these children not engaged in school learning in the first place? If we can solve that problem, we'll go a long way towards solving youth crime. And we'll give you another thought. One of the things that is out of control and victimises so many people is actually burglary. And it's about time that we apply 3 strikes to burglary, so that if you commit 3 burglaries, you go to prison for 3 years. Because many other parties on this stage will say, well, what about the criminal? What about them? Well, the ACT Party says we should be concerned about the victims of crime first and foremost, and then think about rehabilitating the criminal.
Thank you, David. Mr. Rashinarian, the small businesses are victimized by the gunpoint robberies, so what's your plan to fix the firearm use in criminals?
First of all, see, anybody, whoever got a license to have a gun, there's no record in the gun control. See, I can have 6 guns and nobody come and check whether I got 6 guns or 1 gun and I might have sold to other people. So what we need to have a register of the guns. So, and then I'll re-explain you about our law and order policy. See, we're putting law and order policy in 2 parts. One is that we have to fix the short term and one is the long term. And you look, all the Asians are feeling very unsafe, especially all the business and people even at home. So for the short term, what we're going to do is that we have to put more police on the road, which will be 2,400, and we're going to make self-defense and not a crime anymore. Because that's ridiculous. If somebody can come to my shop and come and hit me, but I can't do anything back. So it's nobody asking, no shop owner asking people come and hit me, or we are looking for a problem. So the next thing we're going to do is that, especially for the young people, whoever maybe what crime they do, especially the serious crime, it will be treated as adult. Won't be no question mark. But if somebody can create a serious crime, he or she must be treated very seriously. And the last thing which I like to explain to everybody, that I'm in a part of, like to have the rehabilitation programs, so that we in the society we have to reduce the criminals. Like if you reduce the number of criminals in the society, crime will come down. So rehabilitation is only one other way to do that. We can't just lock up. We have to do rehabilitation long term.
Thank you. Thank you all. We are moved to the final part and the open discussion of prosperity after the break. Welcome back. At the third segment, we'll discuss achieving prosperity and increasing jobs. The unemployment rate is much lower than ever in the past year, but the income inequality remains significant and lots of people living from paycheck to paycheck. So in this segment, we'll have an open discussion. Begin with Ms. Denise. Tell me, why is the Green Party the better choice than other parties to increase the kind of jobs and put more money into the New Zealanders' pocket? Yeah. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. There's a real concern with the growing inequality between the very wealthy and the very poor, and the very poor are slipping off the margins. We have a situation now when there's around about 300,000 working people who are earning close to the minimum wage or the minimum wage, which is $15.75 an hour. The Greens support the concept of a living wage, which currently is set at around about $20.20 an hour. And why we support that is because it gives people more money in their pockets, but it's also because the poorest people in our communities are the ones that spend most of their income, so their money actually generates quite a lot of local economic benefits. So what we would do is introduce the living wage to those who are employed directly by government, and then extend it to those who contract with government to ensure that people can actually live on what they're earning. What we know also is that those who are involved with trade unions, who are covered by collective employment agreements, actually earn around about 20% more than those who are left to fend for themselves. And over the last 9 years of this government, we've seen union membership really decrease because people haven't, unions have actually been given a really raw deal by this government. So it's been harder and harder and harder for people to join a union and negotiate collectively for better wages and conditions. And that's also showing up in our health and safety statistics, where we have some of the worst number of fatalities in the workplace in the entire world. So there's a lot more that we need to be doing that ensures that people can actually live on what they earn. The cost of living is increasing. Rental and accommodation costs are massive in this country. Some people are paying here in Auckland up to 70% of what they earn on just putting a roof over their heads. So we suggest that there should be more controls around rentals, warrant and fitnesses, but also how much is paid in rent. We support rent-to-buy schemes to ensure that people can put down roots in their communities and buy their own homes and build those communities, which is actually what we all want in this country, which is safe communities, and that happens when people have got roots. We also, so actually our policies around income are really, really good, and I would encourage people to go and check them out on the website.
Thank you. Mr. Rashinaria, why is People's Party the better choice, do you think?
Right. I think
you have 2.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. You look at that cost of living, biggest part for most of the people, especially in the lower end, is housing. Because you look at that, probably 50 to 60% people spend on housing. What I would like to see, we studied quite a bit about Singapore. See, people who are on the lower end, we have to make them to own their own houses. See, just renting is not a solution, I always feel. That if the people own their own houses, they live better, their health system is better, their education is better, they feel ownership. And people renting out, we can give them a rent for their whole life. They don't feel the ownership. So what we need to do, create is more infrastructure in Auckland and all over New Zealand, so there can be more, we can build more houses, and we help the people buy their own houses. We initially have announced that anybody who is a first home buyer in Auckland, will give them a $100,000 interest-free loan for 5 years, so they can use that as a deposit to buy the house. And people living outside Auckland, will give them $60,000 interest-free for 5 years to buy their house, and which will be part of the deposit. And you know, cost of this scheme, which I can give you the figures later on separately, is only $150 million a year. So that's a 60,000. It's not. We're talking 60,000 families, not 60,000 people. People can laugh, but I can give you the figures. See, I'm an economist. I know, but I'm a businessman. I'm employed 250. I know what I'm talking about. And so it's owning the house will be one of the part where people, the cost of their, but it's only the two part of the life. One is the income, one is the cost of living. So if we can reduce the cost of living and help them to have a better cost of living, people will live healthy and standard of living will improve. Okay, then second thing, to improve it, just not by increasing the wages, somebody else has to pay. We need to train people more. We need to give them a better training. For example, plumbers, drain layers. You know, each plumber or drain layer are not more than a worker, effective worker. So we need to give more training to the people so people can earn more. So we just by increasing wages doesn't help. You are really taking somewhere else. So it's, you look at the fact in the world, if you just increase the wages by regulation, that doesn't help the economy. That in fact, that is a negative to the economy. So we need to look at how we're going to increase the people. One is by housing, one by giving people more training, which in the last, especially not only 9 years, probably last 20 years, the number of training have been reduced. That's what we'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. David Seymour, why the voters should vote for ACT Party?
Well, first of all, there's a record of the last 9 years where we have had stable policy, we've had restrained government spending, and in general, despite a great financial crisis and a major recession called the GFC, actually positive job growth, record employment, and the biggest problems that New Zealand has today are actually a result of so many people wanting to come here, and we welcome that. So first of all, there's the record, and people have got used to having a stable centre-right government that controls its spending and allows New Zealanders to prosper and grow, but it could very easily change. And if you listen to some of these other parties, if you listen to the Greens, to Labour, to the Māori Party, then what you find is that you've got people who don't properly understand the economy, who make all sorts of promises, they don't know what they cost, and they will increase taxes and seriously damage our prosperity. But I have to say, some of my friends here got one thing right, is that while we've had strong income growth, we have had a failure of our housing market that has meant the poorest people in New Zealand now spend half their income on housing, and many people of all different strata of income find it very difficult to access the housing market. We have to fundamentally reform that market if we want to get our economy moving again. We need to change the land use regulation that has stopped us having enough land to build homes on. The ACT Party says that we need to replace the Resource Management Act, and Why haven't we been able to do that in the previous Parliament? Because Marama Fox from the Māori Party believes it's more important that you have to go and ask the local iwi permission to make developments than actually building enough homes in order to prosper. She basically believes that Māori are number one and everyone else that arrived later is number two, and that is severely damaging to our country and has damaged our housing market by failing to allow reform in the last term of Parliament. The second thing that we need to do is actually increase the amount of funding that goes into infrastructure. We simply do not have enough money to build the pipes, the roads, the bridges and the tunnels that link together the new land and the new houses that we must develop in order to prosper as a country. The Axe Party would share half of the GST the government charges on construction with the local council so we can build the infrastructure to get to the homes and be a prosperous country.
Thank you, David. Ms. Marama Fox, what's your response to David and why we should vote for Māori Party?
Well, it's simple actually. The Māori people in this country welcome Chinese investment. We are looking at public-private partnerships to grow infrastructure all across our regions. We announced the iwi rail policy. We already have investors from China who are willing to work with us to grow infrastructure, to build businesses in the East Coast and around the pockets of land that is such untapped potential. And those pockets of land sit in the hands of iwi, who have not had support through legislation over the last 150 years to ensure that we all rise together as a people. In fact, we welcome our Chinese whānau because we recognise the links through our DNA all the way back to Taiwan and across the Asia Pacific region, and we want to work on this together. We know that in 2050 this country is going to be built on the back of Māori, Pacific and Asian communities because we have a younger average age, 23 years old, and by that time our European whānau in this country, we are going to be supporting them. We are literally going to be the economic base for this entire nation, and we need to make the decisions now that will ensure we can all prosper together, and we can only do that when we partner with our Asian whānau. So public-private infrastructure, public-private investment into growing rail. For every job you have in rail, you equal one job in the community. So we can connect those people in those untouched, untapped potential on the East Coast, connect them back to the main trunk line, get those businesses growing. Our Asian whānau have already said, whatever you can produce, we're willing to buy, whether it be honey, whether it be through our wine and our great produce that we have here, through sheep industry, through the cattle industry, and we're willing and ready to work with our Asian whānau. We call it the Dragon Taniwha Alliance, and it's been built up slowly over the last few years, first through Dr. Peter Sharples, and then through the current Minister of Māori Development, the Honourable Tudoro Flavel, and we are looking forward to increase that so we can all prosper together, and we know where the future lies. The future is with our whānau from the Asia area, with Pacifica who live here, and with tangata whenua. Yes, we do put tangata whenua first because this is the indigenous place of our people.
Thank you, Marama. Michael Booth, it's your turn, so tell us why the Labour is the best choice for us.
Certainly. Well, look, the purpose of an economy is to serve its people, and so while it's true that we've had reasonably good economic growth over the last few years on the back of a good foreign exchange market, on export earnings and a number of other factors, immigration as well has helped to support those numbers. We had 2/3 of people in New Zealand last year who received a wage increase lower than inflation, so that means they feel like they're going backwards. We've also got 75,000 young people who aren't in work, who aren't in education and who aren't in training. And if we go back to our earlier discussion about crime in our communities, well, there's one of your #1 sources of criminal activity in our community. So we've got to tackle those issues and build on New Zealand's strengths. A couple of things I want to touch on here. The first is New Zealand's appallingly low productivity. This is a long-run problem that New Zealand has had, but over the last 9 years of this national-led government, we've made absolutely no progress. We are the 4th lowest productivity country in the OECD, and that means that year by year we become poorer relative to other countries with whom we like to compare ourselves to. What are a few things we could do in that area? Well, firstly is good regional development policy. For example, at the moment, we export a whole lot of basically unprocessed logs out of New Zealand. We grow them here, we sell them off cheaply, and that's it. Someone else extracts the value out of those logs by turning them into higher value products. We need to have a regional economic development strategy that actually brings the investment and brings the jobs into turning those logs into things that we can sell into world markets for better prices. Labor, for example, will partner with the private sector to build an advanced wood processing plant near Gisborne to give decent jobs and good incomes to people in those communities. It's about transport as well. Business New Zealand told us recently that every year in Auckland we have $2 billion of lost productivity because of the traffic gridlock in our city. And it is only the Labour Party that has put forward a comprehensive plan to invest in the high quality public transport that we need to move people around and unclog our roads. At the end of 9 years of National, it's getting worse, and Labour's got a comprehensive plan to change that. We've got to invest in training and education for everyone and take advantage of the wonderful opportunities that we have through the China-New Zealand FTA. I've been to a number of seminars and summits this year about the Belt and Road Initiative, and there are huge opportunities there if we build on the excellent relationships that we have between New Zealand and China to increase our exports, to access some of the investment sources that are coming through Belt and Road, and to grow jobs and investment in New Zealand. Final thing I'd say is that we do need to get on top of this housing crisis, because that's probably the number one thing that's making people feel poorer, because they don't have enough money to pay the rent or the mortgage. Labour's got a plan.
Let's just not blame the Chinese for it.
Thank you, Michael. Ms. Judith Collins, tell us how the National Party can lead us to the prosperity.
Well, the National Party has been leading the government for the last 9 years, and we inherited a recession, economic recession. We also came into the global financial crisis at the start of that, and we have now got an economy where we've got 3% average growth a year. We are one of the best performing economies in the OECD. We're also an economy that has created 180,000 new jobs just in the last 2 years. We're also an economy where 60,000 children are no longer living in benefit dependent homes and instead are now living in homes where their parents are working. So this is something that we have been able to achieve, along with the fact that we have also not stopped immigration. We have, when we look at immigration, for instance, the Labour Party has taken a real swipe at education, particularly export education, where a lot of students come in from overseas to New Zealand. If we were to stop that, that would cost our economy $4.5 billion a year. That education industry employs 33,000 New Zealanders. It is an extremely supportive of our economy industry, and that is the sort of industry that has taken swipes from various parties in Parliament. So we have shown in the last 9 years that we can work with any party in Parliament on various issues. We've worked with the Maori Party, we've worked with the ACT Party, we've even times worked with the Labour Party, we've certainly worked with the Green Party when it comes to things like warming up New Zealand and home insulation, and I'm the Minister with responsibility for that. I can tell you that we have a scheme in place for warrants of fitnesses for rental homes that comes into effect. The law has been changed into effect next year. And we've also been helping to insulate the homes of people who don't have high incomes but do have homes. So it is really important that we continue a plan of very sensible government where the economy continues to grow. And I consider too the environment is an actual crucial part of that. And when I look at the countries around the world, there are no countries with poor economies where the environment has got some really great results. In fact, you need to have money to help to clean up the environment and continue to keep this country so safe.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Our debate for this evening is in spirit, and we covered a lot of grounds. The conversation will continue in TV28 in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for you all, and thank you viewers for your watching. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
谢谢。
2017年新西兰大选在即，中华电视网推出系列特别节目2017决战国会，9月2日政党问政说明会，9月9日聚焦两大党，9月16日华裔候选人前进国会，党魁及政党代表面对面唇枪舌战，让华人更懂各党政纲。9月23日4个小时全程直播，多路记者直击开票现场连线报道，政经委窦融、周杰主持决 决战国会开票之夜，电视28台，广播 AM936，网站936.nz，微信936全资讯4大平台为您送上2017新西兰大选最全面的报道。2017决战国会。2017决战国会由以下商家特约播映 ：Restaco 专注土地测量、精于分割规划；巴范汤森、姚太郎、鲁阳阳，您房产交易的吉祥二宝 ；JR Group 嘉瑞建筑，诚实为人，诚信为事；嘉利宝纽西兰特产品店，电话09-579-2887；巴范汤森地产中介屈瑞，手机微信021-1900-881；帝王私人安全保险柜，我们专注保护您的重要财物。PGF 保温隔音棉，绿色环保，与您共创温馨家园。巴范汤森 Wayne 郭伟，电话021-680-263。Carwold 车世界，买车卖车就选北岸 Carwold。